Hey, welcome to No Two Gays About It. I'm Tom Burke.
And I'm Michael Foley.
And this is our first podcast, Michael. Pretty exciting, right?
Woohoo! I'm very excited.
So, before we start going, tell everyone, what is No Two Gays About It all about?
Well, we are going to be gearing the conversation to LGBTQ issues and politics. And we're going to be doing that through a different voice, and that is the folks over 50, which Tom and I both are.
Definitely. I think our voice is needed out there. Most representation, as we've talked about, is in that younger gay voice. And it's time that we bring our expertise, our experience to the table. And one thing we're going to do every week, you can find us every Friday, wherever you find your podcast. But every week, my favorite part of No Two Gays About It is the end when we get to do our savage side-eye, which is when we talk about something that's been bugging us that week or something that's really crawled up our something. Yeah, okay. All right, before we get going, Michael, since this is our very first podcast, why don't you introduce yourself to everyone out there? Tell everyone who you are, just something about you.
Well, considering Tom's expression when I said snatch, I should probably start the conversation by saying I'm from New Jersey. So there will probably be a lot of profanity throughout the course of my dialogue. Sorry, Tom. It's we learned to say fuck before we could say mommy and daddy in New Jersey.
Are you kidding me? I was raised Catholic. I learned all my swear words in the church parking lot. Sweet. When all the dads are like, get the fuck out of my way. Where the fuck? Like, oh, we just left church, but okay, cool. All right, go ahead.
Good. So, I came out when I was 18 and was raised by a pack of drag queens because the drag community took me under their wing and helped form the political activist that I eventually became, and I will be forever grateful for that.
Fantastic. Cool.
Yeah, and how about you? Tell us a little bit about you.
Okay, like I said, I was born and raised an Irish Catholic kid in Chicago, moved to New York, lived there forever, then moved to Los Angeles. I have been married for 35 years, so that makes me kind of a unicorn in the gay world. Not really, though. Now that both Michael and I have now moved out to Palm Springs, both from Los Angeles, where we met through mutual friends. In fact, we were in a Hollywood Bowl group. During every summer, we would go to the Hollywood Bowl. He was in this group that we went to. It was so much fun. And then when my husband and I moved out to Palm Springs, Michael slowly moved out here as well. And so that's where our friendship formed, and that's who I am. And let's get going on our No Two Gays About It.
I want to backtrack on the Hollywood Bowl moment because the true bonding moment was when you were forced to go to a particular concert that you didn't necessarily want to go see.
Okay,
and
which one was that?
I am a fan
there were a lot.
I'm a fan of Low for Life, Barry.
Yeah, okay.
And Tom wasn't very excited about that. And he came up to me after the concert and put his arm on my shoulder and said, I get it now.
Yeah, I was
and
unbelievable.
That was the moment.
Right.
So.
Seriously, I grew up, my cousin Joyce would play Barry Manilow records in her bedroom. Like, I thought she was nuts. And of course, I knew who Barry Manilow was. I knew all the songs, but you're right. I went to that concert and oh my God, it was probably the best thing I've ever seen. Everybody was singing. We all knew the words. He was amazing for being his age. It was great. It was a really great. Yes, that was one of our first bonding experiences.
Yes, then we had to say, go ahead.
Yeah. No, go ahead.
He's the man who got me through my adolescence. His music, I retreated into that. And there's one particular song called All the Time, which when I heard, I knew what he was talking about. And that was just about the loneliness, I think, of being part of our community back in that day. And saved my life. Literally. I'm not kidding.
Holy smokes. Who knew? Well,
so I was very happy to get you on the Barry train, I have to say.
So you know where Barry lives, right?
I do. And I've been stalking him. Just kidding, Barry, if you're listening.
Barry also lives out in Palm Springs with the rest of us, which is very cool.
So one of these days. And who did I see on my first night here?
What
Remember the
did you
picture I
see?
sent you?
Yes.
Barry Manilow. And it was like, it was a sign. I went to a show over at the McAllen Theater, and there was Barry like 10 feet away from me. And it was all I can do to not like break down and cry.
It's magic.
I'm so gay. It's just terrifying.
All right, Mr. Gay Man, let's get going with our no two gays about it. Let's start with some politics. You obviously are the political guy. I am not as deeply set into politics as you are. I mean, of course, I keep up on things, but I'm not really aware of everything going on. So what's happening right now? What do you want to talk about?
So today I'd like to talk about the, believe it or not, 127 bills that are anti-LGBTQ that have been introduced across this country, red states obviously, that are attempting to limit our rights and our freedom of speech. And believe it or not, it's not actually not that hard to believe. The state that leads in this.
Can I guess what state it is?
Go for it.
Is it Florida?
No, believe it or not.
Really? Okay.
It's Missouri.
Ooh, really?
Followed by Texas. Florida isn't even in the top three. I think the biggest one there was obviously the don't say gay law. And now what he's trying to do in, public education, and that's erase anybody who's not white and Christian from being taught in history classes. So, but yeah, Florida, it was shocking to me too that it wasn't in the top three, but it's not. And then we also have, believe it or not, legislation that will actually be targeting, this boggles my mind, the drag community.
Yeah,
that
I've heard all that.
They will either be banning or limiting what a drag show can be. And this is coming from the party who has always claimed to be free speech, my rights, fuck you, right? If you don't agree with them, your rights don't matter. And that's what it comes down to.
Okay, so there are these 100 and something bills that are out there, and this is in state legislature, right?
Yes, these are state legislations.
Okay, so are they all going to pass, or are these just people blowing a lot of smoke?
Well, the problem with most of the red states is that the legislatures are solidly locked down as red, which is why it is so important for our community who do live in red states, and there are a lot of them out there, to get involved in local politics. It all starts, even as, in your local school boards who decide what books will be read and what will be taught and what the curriculum is. It's hugely important that I think it's more important actually for LGBTQ community members to be involved in the red states. And I talk to people on Facebook often who are from red states who, there's a feeling of hopelessness and what can I do? Well, basically what you can do is please just get involved. And if there are no LGBTQ organizations where you are, more than likely there's an ACLU who deals with our community as well. They have our backs along with other minority communities. So there are so many things that you could do if you are in a red state, and you are hugely important to this battle that we seem to be waging again. With the Republicans, there's always a scapegoat. And it seems like the spotlight has turned back onto our community right now.
So let me ask you something. So you said, it's pretty dire out there, but, in the 80s, when things were really dire, we stood up and we fought. We fought for a lot. The fact that I'm married is amazing. Do you think a lot of this, I don't know what word to use, but like the younger gays in the, not only the gays, the people in their community in these red states, are they standing up like we did? Are they fighting like we did? Or are they just kind of like, yeah, whatever?
I think there's a huge gap in activism. Like you said, our age group, our demographic, if you came out in the 80s, which is I did, and like I said earlier, that's when I became an activist because friends of mine were dying.
Right.
And we had a president in the White House who wouldn't even utter the word AIDS.
Right.
And nobody was doing nothing. So you for me, I had to fight and become part of the solution. But then there's the younger generation who are, the teens and the early 20s, I think are also very politically involved now. But there's this big gap between between mid to late 20s to maybe 45, 50, where it seemed like activism had fallen away because it seemed like everything was going okay. We had Clinton for 8 years, and then, there was a slight hiccup, and then we had Obama for 8 years. So it looked like, yay, we finally crossed the bridge, only to realize that the bridge is still in the distance because there are a whole lot of people out there who really do want us to go away.
So how do you get this gap of people in Missouri to stand up and start doing something?
Hopefully through education, hopefully through having dialogue. To me, that's the most important thing you could possibly do, because as you know, I wrote a book a while ago and a Facebook page grew out of it. And I have dialogue with people.
I'm sorry, what is that Facebook page?
Oh, and this is the place that you could actually get a hold of us and actually comment. And if you have questions or anything you want to know about Tom and I or issues you want to covered, it's called Friend of Dorothy Book. And it is on Facebook. So www.facebook.com/Friend of Dorothy Book. But I have dialogue with people, like I said, especially in red states. And they are involved, but there's a sense of hopelessness because they feel alone. And we have to make sure that the dialogue is open and continues, and just to educate, like we did through the 90s and the 2000s, where the more we came out, the more people realized, oh, it's my nephew. Oh, it's my daughter. Oh, it's my aunt. It's my great aunt, who at the age of 60 decided to come out.
Right.
And realize that we're not a threat. The threat are those people who are trying to take away the rights of anyone else. That's the threat.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's put this out there to everyone out in the world. If you have some solution, or if you know of something that we should be doing or we should be passing along, as Michael said, reach out to us on Facebook, or you can reach out to us through Instagram. And what's our Instagram, Michael?
We are at No Two Gays, no, the number 2.
2
Gays About
Gays
It.
About It.
On Instagram. And you could also reach us at Gmail with the same moniker, No Two Gays About It, at gmail.com. And if you have something going on in your community and you want people to hear about it, please let us know, because we are more than happy to share. And if we can, in whatever way we can, possibly direct some help your way.
Yeah, definitely. And I really would love to hear those people in our generation, the 50 and above, who were out there fighting, who were out there standing up for our rights, if they know how we could get this group that is not doing that involved as we were. Yeah, a lot, like you said, a lot was through death. We were seeing people just disappearing from around us. That was so scary, which kind of really forced us out into the streets. But there has to be something else that can force these other people, not force, but get them involved, get them in onto the conversation as well. So please, all you over 50 people out there, join our conversation and help us figure out how we can get all of these 100 and whatever bills strike down.
And also, I just want to share something which is on topic. So I had dinner with 2 friends of mine who are both in their late 20s. And the conversation about PrEP and HIV came up. And I shared with them my activism days with ACT UP and the gay men's health crisis. And both of them looked at me like, what?
Right.
And I was like, how do you guys, and I didn't do it in a way that was preachy or making them feel bad, but it was like, you guys need to know your history. And one of them at the table Googled ACT UP, because I had brought up the die-in on Wall Street that I was part of. And he pulled it up on Google and he went, are you talking about this? And I was like, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Please. It's so important you guys get involved. And
unbelievable.
I saw a light bulb go on. And, it's through no fault of their own because, again, they're a generation where it looked like things were good. It was okay. If you look at the arc of political activism and how it went up through the Obama years, it did look like we were safe finally. But again, the bridge is still in the distance. We haven't crossed it.
Yeah, we were safe though, but we were still starting a new fight at that point. The whole thing about gay marriage and equality, that was happening too. Yeah, maybe they were little kids or even teenagers, but they had to have been aware. And if they weren't, it's their job to find out the history of where they came from and where they're going.
I agree, because
And
when we came out, we knew who Harvey Milk was, even though it was prior
oh,
to our
God,
time,
yeah,
and the gay liberation movement, and Alan Turing. We knew our history
right.
because we had people telling us about it, and I think that's the issue now with social media, that cliques form, that we tend to stay within a comfortable arena for us, and for me having this conversation with these two guys who I love dearly. And again, who are just really good friends of mine, you've met them, to see the fact that it wasn't even on their radar, I can understand.
Right.
Because again, with the onset of social media, what happens? Pockets are formed, and you stay within your group, and you talk to the people who you have the mutual interest with. But, there's still a whole, and I said this to him, there's a whole big world out there,
Yeah.
that you just... And I've lived by this rule that a teacher instilled in me way back when: learn one new thing a day, just one.
Right.
And your life changes drastically.
Okay. I would like to talk about one particular person in this age gap that we're discussing, so we're going to bridge not only LGBTQ issues, but also some political issues. Oh my God, George Santos. What the actual fuck? However, did you read? I just read that he is recusing himself from his committees.
Yep, that just literally happened.
But why wasn't he kicked off of those committees like a long time ago?
Because Kevin McCarthy is a total clown. I actually saw an interview with him after this announcement was made.
Yeah.
And they said, so did you tell him directly that he had to step down? He goes, well, no, we had a conversation and he agreed that it might be better. It's like, you're the Speaker of the House, you dumbass. He should have never been placed on a committee to begin with.
No kidding. Even though they were like the lowest rung committees or whatever. But also, what was it, 2 days ago or a couple days ago, the DOJ came out and told New York, like, okay, you guys leave him alone for a minute because he's all ours. Like, you would think at that point, someone would be like, yeah, we got to do something now.
Well, did you hear about the new poll as well out of New York?
No.
Okay, so 76% of the people in his district want him out. 72% of that is Republican.
Right.
So that in itself is shocking, considering, although New York Republicans are very different than... They're the last holdout from the old party, which just basically doesn't exist anymore. But yeah, so there's movement, but
of course there's they're being made fun of, these people, that they put this guy into the office, and just the fact that it's like one thing after the next, like it's an actual joke that this guy is a congressman. Yeah. Like I don't get it.
And you know he has other names, right?
Oh yeah,
Anthony DeVolder.
Yeah, I watched one of
do you know his drag name?
I do. Shoot, I have it written down some. What is it? Tell me.
Katira,
right?
Katira. Yeah.
Yeah.
So he goes by a lot. He goes by a lot of names, and I am most struck by his volleyball career. I am so impressed by that, I have to say.
Okay, but not only is he making our politics, our government look bad, he's making the Republicans look like complete fools, but he's also making our community look really bad. Mm-hmm. Because now all those people in those red states were like, yeah, them gays, they're all that, look what they do. They lie. They make all this shit up. Like, what? Like,
yeah.
It's
But it is
unbelievable to
it is
me.
ironic how that Kevin McCarthy has him sort of bulletproofed because he needs his vote. There's a
Yeah.
slim 4 to 5 vote margin in the House, so he needs that seat. And he's horrified that somebody else, if they do run a special election, that a Democrat will take it back.
Right. There has to be something so dirty in this money that where he got all of this money.
Yeah.
It had to have been some big Republican who said, "Oh, here's a gay guy who will do whatever we say. We're going to get this seat because of that." And that's how he got all that money. I hope that comes out somehow. I mean, it has to, right?
But it's really hard to have hope these days in regard to anybody being, especially when it comes to Republican corruption, being convicted of anything these days. But
I mean, that's the thing.
Hope springs eternal, and I just, I think I've said it to your husband a number of times, who's equally as politically nuts as I am.
Yes.
I have faith in Merrick Garland. I just wish he would hurry the fuck up.
Right.
Something has to happen.
I get that they want to do it the correct way and everything seems to take forever, but come on, we need a little bit of something. I guess the fact that George or Katara, what's her name? Katara is,
that's what he will forever be known for from his mate.
Has stepped down. I mean, that's a good thing. We are moving in the right direction, but didn't it take a little long to get there?
Again, he should have never been placed on a committee.
Exactly.
That's the hoo-ha of it.
All right. Let's move along to something that's really good, because this has been some rough stuff we're going through. But how crazy is this? We talked a little bit politics already, and you were talking about all these bills, especially against drag shows, which is ridiculous. We just talked about Katara, Congressman Katara. Also, I have an awesome pop culture story that also centers around the drag world. I was so impressed. This is a huge shout out to not only CBS, but also to Chuck Lorre. And do you know the show Bob Hearts Abishola?
I do.
Have you seen it?
I have seen clips, but I've never seen a full episode, I have to say.
Okay, so just for those that don't know, it's a CBS a sitcom. It's about a guy who lives in Detroit, played by Billy Gardell, who was Mike of Mike and Molly. And he falls in love with this immigrant who's a nurse from Nigeria. And Nigeria is a very conservative, strict culture, right? So it's kind of fun, just the two worlds coming together. Billy's mom is played by, what's her name? Christine Ebersol. You know who she is?
I love her.
Every good gay man out there should know who she is.
I was on a cruise with her. Okay. We sat at a blackjack table together.
Well,
and I carried her shoes back to her room with Sharon Glass.
Fantastic. Oh, how fantastic. Is she gay?
No, but she was on one of Rosie's cruises as entertainment. So
it
was a late night in the casino.
Just because you mentioned she and Sharon Glass together, it's like,
oh, no, they were in separate cabins. Sorry.
Okay, good. Just checking. Anyway, back to Bob Hearts Abishola, which I'm sure I'm not saying the right way. Anyway, they have already tackled a really great subject. There was one of Abishola's cousins who also came over from Nigeria, who came out as lesbian, and that was a big thing for this, but they handled it really, really well. I was really impressed with that. But I just watched the latest show, and Abishola went with her aunt and this lesbian cousin to a drag brunch. And at first I thought, this is brilliant. Everything that's going on about drag brunches and how horrible they are and how they're, grooming children and whatever, ridiculous. And I thought, okay, great that they are tackling this. And it was done really well. She, the lead actress, was very uncomfortable, and she kept saying, like, I don't want to feel this way, but this is just the way I was, raised. And one of the drag queens sat down with at their table, and it was just really sweet. And it wasn't anything. It was just kind of like, I don't know. It's okay, and it's okay to feel bad about it. It's okay, And even another woman said to her, "It's just the way you were raised, and it's going to take you time. But the fact that you are open to this," and then show goes along, and I thought, okay, well, that was really nice the way they handled it, but I didn't feel resolved. And then at the very end of the show, this was the best part. Abishola is on her way to work, and she's on a bus. And there's this young guy standing there, and she's like, "That's the drag queen." But he wasn't all decked out in glitter and whatever. He was on his way to law school. He had on, had a jean jacket and his law, whatever. He just a regular guy. And she invited him to sit down, and they started having just a conversation. And you could just see in her head, oh, he's just like a normal guy. It was just so really brilliantly done. And the fact that it's being done right now when the world is saying drag queens are horrible, drag shows are horrible. I just was so impressed. And that's why I'm sending out a big shout out to not only, CBS, but Chuck Lorre for doing that as well. I was really impressed by that.
That's really incredible. And, we touched on this earlier it's about having a conversation.
Totally.
It's about
That's all
learning
it is.
something different.
Right. And it also kind of struck me while I was watching this, because then I'm, in my head, I'm thinking, okay, all this stuff about drag queens and bringing kids to drag shows and grooming them. And all I could think about when I was younger, I traveled all over the world with my parents. And I remember being, 9 years old at a nightclub, one of those with the dancers and the big feather headdresses and chest, boobs hanging all over the place. And I was just like, okay, and that was a normal thing. And I'm thinking to myself now, well, was I being groomed to like boobs? Well, it didn't work. Sorry, Mom,
And it never will. Because
exactly.
the one thing that they cannot get into their heads is we literally are born this way. The second you realize you're a hetero is the second we realize we're not.
Yeah. How sad is this? There I am at this nightclub, 9 years old, watching this woman shaking her boobs in my face. And I'm like, I love that outfit. She's, oh, I love those feathers. I'm sorry.
And that's when you know.
Exactly. Right.
Seeing Wonder Woman on TV had nothing to do with the outfit or her boobs. It had to do with her strength, who she was, the character that she represented, and that strength. And it's so funny how many of us gay men are drawn to women like that.
Right.
Who present this strong, outwardly appearance and who, kick ass on their own because it's a bizarre thing that we have in common, us homos, that we sort of, we gravitated to these people. And it's so nice to hear that CBS did that because again, my roots are in the drag community. So this issue right now really irks me because fucking Shakespeare was drag.
Right.
What the hell? Uncle Milty, Flip Wilson.
Right. Flip Wilson. Remember that?
Yeah, yes. Geraldine.
Yes.
Oh my God. Come on. It didn't get better than that. And the breeders, sorry if that's an offensive term to anybody. The heterosexuals didn't have an issue with that kind of drag. For some reason, they found it safe. Maybe because it was a straight man doing it. I'm not sure. I would love to have a conversation with somebody about that. Like, what's the threat? What threat does a drag queen pose to your way of life?
Right.
And please don't tell me it's about, with that pedophilia thing that they're throwing out now, because can I get a little controversial?
Yeah, sure.
I remember an organization in the 80s and 90s that was under huge, they were under huge magnifying glass for actual sexual predators within their ranks. And there were no pitchforks and there were no torches lined up outside of churches.
Right.
But yet they're going to a drag show. And I'm not sure if you know this, that the percentage of actual sexual assault is skewed heterosexual, not homosexual.
Right.
Like the perpetrators.
Yeah.
So I really want to I really do want to understand this issue with these folk. What is your issue? What is the problem? What are you actually afraid of? Is it something that you just don't understand? And is that what you fear? So
maybe just being different. Who knows? But I totally get, I mean, again, I was raised Irish Catholic. I was an altar boy. I was groped by priests,
Sorry.
And no, yeah, I mean, it was a horrible thing. But just like you said, no one was storming all the churches going like, oh my God.
Why weren't they outside of St. Patrick's Cathedral? Because I'm Italian Catholic. So you know what? Both Tom and I have experience in this, and we're not speaking out of class. We know from whence we speak in regard to the church and how we were raised. So where were they then when there was actual proof of assault? Where was it? And now you're just going on hypotheticals and, well, what if?
Or even right now. I mean, there is so much proof now. Why aren't the same people who are picketing at the drag show going over then to Saint whatever church and being like, you guys are doing the same thing?
Because I have to tell you, I watch a lot of late night television, as you know, because Bewitched is on. But there's always the commercials about if you were a victim of sexual assault within the church, please contact us. The hypocrisy is mind-numbing to me of where they choose to plant their flag.
Right. All right, sir. Let's.
That got deep again too.
Right.
Okay.
As long as we're in this fighting mode, let's move to our savage side eye. You have anybody you want to throw some shade at, Michael?
Daily. But today I'm just going to pick one because I know that's what you want. Okay. So, when you're standing in line, and today it happened to be I was grabbing coffee, and you're there for about 5 to 10 minutes because the line's like 8 to 10 people deep, and you finally are one person away from the counter. And the person who has been in front of you the whole time gets there, and they don't know what the fuck they want. It's like, what were you doing for the last 10 minutes? What in God's... And it's not like it's more than likely their first time at this particular place. What were you doing? How do you not know what you get when you get to the counter? Could you just make up your mind and then have your money ready, have your credit card out, and then get the fuck out of the way? That's it.
Okay.
It's just a request for anybody out there who might be texting or, doing whatever while they're waiting online and not paying attention.
So funny. My husband has that exact same issue every time. And I'm always like, oh, just let it go. Just shut up. Just okay.
But is it? They literally were online for 10 minutes.
I know. It's ridiculous. People are ridiculous. Speaking of ridiculous people, Michael, you might want to turn up some lights at your house because it's going to get pretty shady, because my side eye is being thrown at Michael Foley, co-host of No Two Gays About It.
Yes.
All right. When we're developing this podcast of ours, we wanted it to be of a certain voice, the voice of the gay male in our age group. And I wanted to use the term mature. But Michael would have nothing to do with that. No, mature. I can't say that word. I'm like, what do you want me to say? Old guy? Because I don't want to really say old guy yet. But he's like, no, over 50. And I'm like, okay, but I think we're both over 50 quite a bit. So, okay, what's the deal with no using the word mature, Michael?
Well, I'll tell you. So for me, mature has different connotation. It's not necessarily an age reference. Maturity can be, I've like the two guys who I had dinner with last week who were in their late 20s. They're mature on a lot of levels.
Yeah,
And then
they're mature for 28-year-olds.
Well, yeah, but then last night I was out and about because I'm single and not married for 35 years. And I was having conversation with someone who was well into their 50s. And it was one of the most immature conversations I've had in months. So I think that's my issue with mature, the word
Okay.
mature.
I get the fact that older people can act immature, but you are right. There are very different levels of maturity. A 28-year-old is mature for a 28-year-old. They have not, and you have already made this point today, they have not lived through what we have lived through. They have not, so their voice is not the same as ours. I just think using the word mature is appropriate for men of our age.
Okay. Well, you know what? That
And-
will be my one new thing I learned today. That, you like the word mature.
It's
And
not that I
will
like
res-
the word mature.
will
I was
respect
just
that.
thrown a little shade that way because you did not like that word because you're like, oh, but my 30-year-old friend's mature. No, he isn't. But okay, I'll go with that. All right. We good?
We're good. And you are the most mature over 50 person I know. And thank you for the shade because
yes,
in
I
Palm
am.
Springs it's very sunny here. So
that it is. So, this was fun. Our very first podcast. I thought this was great. I really do want to invite everyone out there to join our conversation, especially if you are one of those mature gay males out there.
or just a
Whether
gay
you're-
male over 50.
Exactly. So reach out to us. You can do that on Instagram. We are at number two, gays about it. You can find us where on Facebook, Michael?
At www.facebook.com/friend of Dorothy book. Make sure you put the book in there. And you could also get us at Gmail at number two, gaysabout@gmail.com.
Right. Please join us on this conversation as we go forward. And I want to thank everybody out there for joining us at No Two Gays About It, where every voice, every opinion, and every age group, even the mature ones, matter. So until we meet again, get out there, join the conversation, and let your voice be heard. Michael, this has been awesome. Until next time.
Tom. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay, see you.